Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episodes of Supergirl, Lucifer, and Gotham. Now, starting off with Supergirl, I have to kind of control myself a little bit because this episode was super cool. This being the episode where the Flash and Supergirl crossed over, and it was amazing, and I just loved it. I normally don't kind of pay attention too much. I mean, I really don't really break it down like that too much, but I really like this episode for one particular reason. I mean, there's many reasons, but one particular reason is just because to me it seemed like Melissa Benoist and Grant Gustin worked together so well. It just seemed like they had such good chemistry, so it looked like Supergirl and Barry had good chemistry too. They looked like they were having fun, and it looked like the characters were having fun. So that's what just made it all around fun. In this episode, they kind of had take on Silver Banshee as well as Livewire, which is very interesting when you looking at Silver Banshee, which I kind of saw the costume ahead of time because saw something else because I saw something, so I knew what her costume looked like ahead of time. But I thought it was going to be something she transformed into. I didn't know it was just like a legitimate costume, which is kind of interesting. It still looks pretty badass, so that was kind of interesting. It's kind of a shame though, because Siobhan is a little bit bitchy, and you kind of find out apparently there's a reason for her bitchiness. The reason why people don't like her, it's particularly the women in their family, is because they were cursed a long time ago by a banshee, and basically the only way to get rid of it is to kill the person you hate the most. In her case, that being Kara. I mean, she did attempt to kill Kara earlier in the episode, but Barry, quote unquote, saved her at the last minute. But she was like, "I don't need you to save me." He's like, "You were about to fall from a building." So I thought I did the right thing. I did like them going back and forth. Like she's like, "I'm Supergirl." He's like, "Super who?" And then he's like, "I'm the Flash." She's like, "The who?" She's like, do you know the Green Arrow, Black Canary, Firestorm? She's like, no. He's like, huh. I definitely on another Earth. Kind of a little geeking out about everything else, especially when he finds out that Kara is an alien. He's like, oh my god, you're an alien? He's like, that's so cool. And then he explained the fact is that the multiverse theory about him being from a different Earth that's parallel to this one. Essentially, he was training to get, obviously like he is on the Flash, he's training to get his speed up. So he ended up punching a hole into this Earth, which makes you wonder, like, I was expecting the last Flash episode to set this up, but surprisingly it didn't. But that's fine. Whatever the case may be. Maybe we'll get an episode of The Flash. Maybe this week's episode will end with him popping into Supergirl, and then, the next episode after this, that one will be him popping back. Never mind. This is about Supergirl, not The Flash. I mean, you know what I mean. I just love this episode because, it's just two amazing worlds colliding, And you have, Kara's kind of a little rash in this episode. She even explains it to Barry that the fact is she's in such a rush to get the city back on her side because, it's still not working. She's like, I even helped, she helped somebody put something together, and that's still not enough for the city to help her. It's very interesting because it's not like you can actually see her. She's like, I'm trying, but the people of the city still won't take me back. And Barry even explained it to her. He's like, you have to kind of slow down, give it time, There's been moments where people have kind of turned against the Flash. Let's not forget last episode when everyone was thinking the Flash turned into nothing more than a petty thief. So, and there was that time he was controlled that he kind of went a little nuts, and Oliver had to kind of take him down. Like, that was back in season 1, so he kind of understands where she's coming from. I really like the whole situation with Kat too, because Kat wanted to, name this new superhero in town, and Barry's like, she kept throwing out names, and he's like, how about the Flash? She's like, no, that sounds like someone who's going to jump down and flash you in an alleyway. And also, she's like, I'm going to call you the Blur. Now, I don't know if that's a Flash reference. To me, that sounds like a Smallville reference, which I find it interesting. I'm catching all these Smallville references, if this is in fact one, because, it's only because I rewatched the series like a couple months back, last year. It's a reference to Clark because, like, in the later seasons, he kind of became a vigilante, and he would take out criminals by using, by running really fast. So all people would ever see is a blur. So that's what he became known as. So I'm guessing that's a reference to that. And I love the fact is that Kat was the one to be like, yeah, Barry, he's totally the Flash. And she's like, and Kara's like, how did you know? She's like, the Flash Barry pops up at the same time as the Flash, and he's the one that wants, and he's pushing so hard for the Flash to have the name of the Flash. Obviously he was, obviously she's like, I'm not, I am pretty sharp. I notice these type of things, which, obviously she still doesn't know that Kara is Supergirl, which she did figure it out. She did exactly figure it out. But thanks to John, that's completely not even a possibility in Kat's mind anymore. It makes you wonder, would she ever figure out the truth? I mean, people who know John exist, and probably people saw him revert back into a human form, so maybe in her mind she'll think, did I get duped? I don't know. Kat's not easy to fool. I mean, she was fooled in that regard, but that's not something you'd immediately think of. Maybe at some point she will, maybe she actually does know, and she's just not letting Kara know that she knows again. I don't know. No, I don't think that's the case. Barry and Kara relationship was working because Kat has suggested that Kara kind of make him a little jealous, essentially. And boy, was James getting really jealous because he's like, it's just always like, oh, where's Kara? Oh yeah, she's off of Barry. It's like, oh. And then even Wynn's poking fun of him. It's like, that's a new look on your face. That's a look on your face I never thought I'd get to see. He's like, what? Jealousy, thy name is Olsen. I mean, like Wynn and Barry, because they were kind of nerding out, just especially when Barry explained the multiverse theory. He's just like, oh, this is so cool. He's just like, oh my god, you're from another Earth. It's amazing. And it's just like, did I mention that I like that guy? But it's very interesting that the city is kind of back on Kara's side now. Didn't go down the way the whole Silver Banshee and Livewire situation didn't go down the way I expected it to, but I thought it was going to be some kind of epic like thing between Barry and Supergirl taking them down, but it ended up being the citizens that helped take them down because they saw Kara willing to sacrifice herself for them. So it kind of reminded them that's like, no, she protects us, whether it might have been a one-off incident, but she's always put her life on the line to protect us. And, this was an example of that. And they stood up to protect her. I really like, how she helped Barry get home, too. Because Barry was like, essentially, they had to run at their top speed. Well, she had to run at her top speed, and he's running really fast, too. And then she throws him while she's running at her top speed, and it gave him enough power to punch through to the earth. And she's just like, bye, Barry. It's just like, God. It's so cool. It's so sweet. I want more of it. Part of me was like, I wish this was like a 2-hour event. I wanted it to be a 2-hour event. I was like, I want more of Supergirl and the Flash. It's awesome when you see Green Arrow and Flash like crossover, but this is like your first time seeing like two people with powers crossing over. I mean, granted, you see it in different forms. Obviously, Barry joins up with, other, people, because, he's joined up with Firestorm on a few occasions, but it's like seeing him going up with another, like, hero. It's just so awesome. I want to see more of this in the future, more crossing over. But granted, this is like, quote unquote, Earth 3, so I don't know if there will be any crossing over, because like the superheroes that are being established in the CW don't exist. Which, granted, Kat made a reference to that because it was James, Wynn, Barry, and Kara standing there. He's like, she's like, basically, you look like you're quite handsome. You're a pretty bunch of people, and you're standing there looking like some people off of the CW or something like that. I was like, there you go, Kat, with that meta joke. But it's like, because of that, it's an established CW universe. It's still awesome that we got this. I don't know, like, if we do get more of it, I don't know how often it'd happen. But I wouldn't mind seeing more of it. It'd be so wickedly awesome. Even to see Supergirl pop up on, like, Arrow or the Flash. I want all the superheroes to come together. I want it. I want it. Just like people have been saying, like a TV Justice League, even though they're trying to build a movie Justice League, so that probably won't happen. But the thought of it is so awesome because I love all our current superheroes. I love Supergirl. I love our Flash, and I love our Arrow. It's just like yes, 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 and not trying to forget about our heroes on DC Legends of Tomorrow. So just them too. It's just too much amazingness. But at the very end, we have, Kara kind of making her move on James because Barry was basically telling her that, there are moments in life that you should slow down with this whole, like, people. As a superhero, there's those aspects of yourself that you should slow down, like the whole handling the whole citizen, like the whole city not liking her thing. But he's like, basically in your personal life, there are moments you have to speed things up. And so she kind of sped things up by kissing James. But it ended on a good note because James kind of went all zombie and started walking out like he was in a trance. And Kara notices literally a lot of people in the city are like that, with the exception of herself. It seems that Myriad has been activated. So what that means, I don't know. I really have no idea where this is heading. So I'll be quite interested to see where it does go. Lucifer, we have probably one of my favorite openings to Lucifer, where we have Lucifer feeding that strawberry to that woman, and she's so enticed by him, and she's just so caught up in the moment. She's like, oh God, and he's just like, why did you have to bring him up in this? We were having a good time until you said that, and then he gets called off to the crime scene by Chloe, and the lady's like, no, I didn't mean to. She's kind of upset with herself. I didn't mean to try you. Basically, the victim this week is a chef named Javier. He's kind of like a well-known chef, and basically Lucifer's upset that he's dead, not because him as a person, because he'll never get to taste like that Javier's special dish. Throughout most of the episode, you have Lucifer being so sure that it's Javier's son Junior, just because he's deflecting his own situation, his own dad issues onto him, because he sees a lot of parallels between him and Junior, because Junior's kind of got problems with his dad. He's the son that was kind of cast aside because he tried following in his dad's footsteps, didn't work out, so he kind of left. Because apparently you find out that basically he kind of got hooked on the drugs and everything, but he went off, got clean, and came back. But, in Lucifer's eyes, he's the prime suspect. Chloe's kind of looking elsewhere. There was even that lady who's basically the second to... She's the one that's going to take over the restaurant. Javier was going to give her the restaurant. You end up finding out, though, that she's actually the one that killed him, because Javier had, he had come back, and to kind of talk to his dad because he wanted to fix things, and, less of a quote unquote fuck up than his son was. He was his son, and he already had it in his mind that he was going to give him the restaurant, which kind of pissed off the lady, because Lucifer admitted like the kind of irony behind it, because the reason why Javier died was because she wasn't trying to kill him, she was trying to kill Junior, but Junior had become a vegetarian. Well, he had given up meat, so she hadn't... The meal they had fixed went to his dad and not him, so that's why he ended up dying. He's like, basically like, you ended up killing the person you love, so how ironic. Other things that went down in this episode, we finally have Dan finally remembering... we have Dan finally finding out why Malcolm wanted the gun. He knows that he's going after Lucifer. He's like, that Malcolm is going to kill Lucifer. And then Dan's like, well, why? Malcolm's like, I'm not going to tell you because you wouldn't believe me if I told you, which he wouldn't most likely believe him. That's 100% sure right there. And it's a very interesting thing because Dan he's like, basically he's like, I wanted any excuse to make it so that at least one excuse, basically saying that you were worth keeping around. Because basically Lucifer had ruined dinner that he was invited to. He had brought Junior there. This is, after he was like, okay, and Junior's not the killer. I thought that was kind of very interesting. Like, I kind of wasn't expecting him to bring Junior to dinner. I thought that was kind of interesting. And we finally kind of get a look at Chloe and her mom. She kind of like, you kind of learn a little bit why she holds resentment to her mom, because she feels like her mom kind of pushed her into being an actor, kind of following in her footsteps. And she just kind of grew up to kind of resent her mom. And because of that, especially because she sees her mom doing the same thing to her little girl, Trixie. Which I love that scene where Trixie basically took an Uber using Chloe's account and basically made her way to Lucifer's place because she was going to see him, but she ended up sitting down and talking to Mazikeen, and Mazikeen ended up really liking her. She's like, and then Chloe shows up and is like, "Oh, thank you," but basically Mazikeen was like, "Oh," she's like, "You can call." I'm Mazikeen, but you can call me Maze. And Trixie's like, "Oh, thanks, Maze." And then Chloe's like, "Thanks, Maze." And Mazikeen's like, "I didn't say you could." It's like Chloe's like, "Oh, okay, of course." So, because it was very interesting too with Mazikeen, she actually went to Dr. Martin's office for advice, but she kind of didn't take too much of the advice. Interestingly enough, later on in the episode, she went back to Dr. Martin and actually she wants to become friends with Dr. Martin. Because basically Mazikeen's kind of lost because she hasn't found her place in the world. Because, this was kind of supposed to be like a vacation stop. They weren't supposed to stay here. She's supposed to go back home, but she doesn't see that happening anytime soon, so she's stuck here, so she's trying to find a way to be quote-unquote normal. Because, even Lucifer has this thing. He has running a club, and, obviously she's the bartender at the club, but it's like, he has his own thing with helping Chloe out, so she kind of wanted to find, her thing, her place in the world, so it's be interesting. I can't wait to see her and Dr. Martin being a little more cozy with one another. Kind of see Chloe and her mom kind of resolve things a little bit. Her mom's like, "I'm sorry, I can be very pushy and overbearing, but I don't know, like the dinner with Javier, Junior kind of probably put certain things in perspective for her too, because they kind of had a similar situation. They'd argue about the stupidest things, but at the end of the day, like his dad loved him and he loved his dad, so kind of made Chloe kind of see that a little bit. Granted, at the time she was super pissed about Lucifer because he brought so much stuff up at dinner. She's like, "Yeah, that your mom acts more like a child, that basically Chloe had to be more of an adult because her mom acts the way she does." Obviously, Dan and Chloe are possibly getting back together, and that explains why Chloe won't sleep with Lucifer. That kind of came up and just ruined dinner. And like I was saying earlier, I kind of left it hanging. That was kind of the reason why Dan was like, "Oh, that's like," I was looking for any way to make sure that one reason to make you say that you're an okay guy, because he didn't tell Lucifer the moment he found out. He could have warned Lucifer, "Yeah, some guy named Malcolm is trying to kill you," something like that. No, he kept on to it. He held on to the information because he doesn't like Lucifer. He actually downright hates him. But surprisingly enough, he does decide to turn on Malcolm and wants to take him down, because it's like, I might not like Lucifer. Lucifer's a piece of crap person, but still, I'm not going to let you kill him. Malcolm ends up like knocking him out. I don't think he killed him. I think he just, knocked him out. He ended up texting Chloe and breaking things up. He took Dan's phone and broke up with Chloe so that she won't really be looking for him. Chloe got super upset about it, got super drunk, and went to Lucifer's place and like almost started trying to make out with him. But Lucifer kind of was like, "No." She's like, "Why are you acting like this? Normally you make any excuse to try and like have sex with me, and now that I'm actually here, you're not going to do it." He's like, "No, I'm not." He's like, "I understand it myself," but he's like, he didn't want to take advantage of her. Basically, if they were going to be like, I guess in his mind, he's like, if they're going to be together, it's going to be like kind of on more so their terms. Like it'll be kind of like, okay, we're both in the right mindset before we let stuff happen. It's kind of interesting. He was kind of being a good guy for once. And basically she ended up passing out. So that was interesting. Very interesting episode. Can't wait to see where everything goes from here. Especially that Malcolm and Dan situation. Like, what's Malcolm going to do now? Now moving on to this week's episode of Gotham, we kind of get more. The episode was heavily focused on Jim's situation, and really never. I mean, it went outside obviously the prison a few times, but everything, it was very heavily Gordon central episode, where we have Gordon dealing with his situation. He even got moved to general population, which is basically where the hardcore criminals are, especially some of the people that he put away. So it's kind of the worst place to be for a cop. Basically, the warden that's running the place is kind of dirty, and he wants any excuse to take Gordon out, even though Gordon's never started any trouble for him. I think it's because the guy is connected to Logan. That's one reason why he hates Jim. Basically, the warden runs that prison, and basically he gets a cut of whatever action goes down there, like any drugs and stuff like that. There's that guard who helps, Jim out throughout the episode, which I thought the entire time he was, like, it seems like he's a good guy, but it also seems like he's connected to Falcone too. Because that was kind of a nice twist, that's the person Harvey ended up turning to because he needed help with the old Jim situation. He ended up going to Falcone. Because it was just so interesting because, Jim sadly found out that Lee lost a baby, and Lee herself has left Gotham. She went somewhere. And, that kind of broke his spirit because Jim kind of didn't want to keep going on. I mean, it's like, truth be told, this was the point. There's nothing outside waiting for him. Because he always looked at pictures of Lee, a picture of Lee that he had, and I guess it kind of kept him going. But, hearing that the baby was going and she was going, just like, I don't know, broke him a little bit on the inside. He ends up meeting that kid named Puck, who kind of inspires him a little bit. It's like, Jim wants to keep his distance from the kid because his association with the kid will get him killed. But he was basically saying that he liked Jim, that Jim was a hero because Jim had apparently saved his little sister. She was like kidnapped or something, but he saved her. So he's like, yeah, you're a hero in my book. There was that part where he got brutally beat up just because of his association with Jim. And those wounds would, later on kill him in an episode when Jim was able to escape because, Falcone helped him fake his death. And, I don't know, it's sad. They finally got out, but just his wounds and stuff were just too much, I think he had gotten a clot somewhere in his body, most likely in his head more specifically, probably his brain from the beating, so... But, Jim did get him out at least, so that counts for something, if not nothing at all. It's better than nothing, I guess, but still, it's sad. I mean, granted, at least the kid didn't die in prison. At least he died, out in the open, being free. So, but basically, it came down to Jim because Falcone was like, "What are you going to do, Jim? You can run away, but if you run, you'll always be running." And he's like, I'm going to find Lee. And the only way I'm going to be able to find Lee, without having to worry about people coming after me, is me clearing my name. So he's going to have to go back. He's going back to Gotham, and he's going to set things right. I did say it was a Gordon-centric episode, but I did forget this was also a Penguin episode because we see Penguin's family situation, which I called it last episode, which I'm sure everyone could see it heading towards that direction. But basically, you end up finding out the lady he's married to and the children aren't his. That they're that lady's children, and they just became a part of his family. But the only true blood heir is, Penguin, Oswald. And we have that situation where they're trying their best to destroy, Penguin, as well as destroy the relationship between Penguin and his dad. Because there was Penguin had previously told his dad about his past a little bit, and his dad, was like, no, it's okay. I forgive you. The past is the past. What matters now is that you're here in my life, which I didn't expect. I was like surprised to see him so willing to be able to be like accept Penguin for who he is / was. There was that moment that the wife and children came and brought the freaking newspaper to him, showing that he who Oswald was as the Penguin, and then he was just like, wow, son. He almost sounded proud. He's like, you didn't tell me you were being so modest. You didn't tell me you were this famous. I was like, That's a little interesting. Wasn't expecting that. To him, like, his love for Oswald outweighed whatever Oswald did. It was just like in that short amount of time, he found out that, he had a son, and it just filled him with joy. So it didn't really matter who Oswald was. And obviously his family is trying to kill him because they basically want the old man's money. They want once he drops dead, all the money will belong to them. There's even, because Oswald's dad has like a heart condition, basically has a hole in his heart. And basically, rather than giving him really real heart pills, basically the wife has been giving him peppermints instead. So that's effed up on her part. They finally decided to try and take down Penguin by poisoning him, but his dad ends up taking a drink and drinking it instead. Because normally he doesn't drink alcohol, but he wanted to celebrate, Oswald being in his life. Because he was going to change his will, have everything go to Penguin. I know I keep flipping back and forth between Penguin and Oswald. He was going to be a part of the will and get everything that his dad was everything his dad had. But, so that's what kind of pushed him to kind of try and do that. Like, pushed him to try and kill Penguin. But sadly, his dad died. I'm quite interested to see, like, how Penguin's going to handle the situation once he finds out. I think that's going to be what pushes Penguin to turn back into who he was, kind of undo all of Hugo's brainwashing. Because I did forget about it, Penguin does come from a wealthy background. I do know that a little bit about his past. He comes from like a well-known family. So I guess this is the well-known, because he's also very like connected. I guess I never really thought about it, because it's like I always thought, him being a criminal, that's where most of his money came from. But it's like, no, the money he used to kind of build his criminal power is money he gets from his dad, apparently, like from his family. So I'm guessing this money he's getting from his dad is going to help basically raise him to become the criminal he's meant to be, that you kind of know him as to be. And I'm really interested to see what he does when he finds out about what they did, that they are the reason why his dad's dead. But all these shows will be returning in 2 weeks on April 11th. So that's really all I want to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, love life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.